Well, they enter the most robust carousel likely in the history of college football. And they also enter direct competition with Florida for the top end of the coaching market in the southeast quadrant of the country. The first name on the lips of power brokers at both schools, obviously, is Lane Kiffin. If not, names like Jeff Brom at Louisville, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, and John Summerall down the road at Tulane are going to be in the forefront of this search for LSU.
That is Pete Thamel on SportsCenter talking about laying out what's next for LSU. Of course, LSU's fired Brian Kelly, so now the search begins for his replacement. And obviously, the most important question that you have to answer is, are you willing to spend $100 million on your next coach? Before we have any conversation about who is next, I mean, we're going to have the conversation. But before we have any realistic conversation, we have to know two things. Number one, who is making this hire? And number two, it's a very key part of this, which is, are you willing to spend $100 million on whoever is next? Because make no mistake, if today you're dreaming about Lane Kiffin, if today you're dreaming about Dan Lanning, then you are starting with a $100 million contract. There's no way around that. I don't care how you structure it, you're going to pay that person 9 figures and you're going to guarantee it. So the question is that the pool that you want to be fishing in? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is yes. I also don't know who is going to be making this hire. My preference, if I could have a pie in the sky, I'm assuming Nick Saban's not going to coach again. But if I had a pie in the sky dream scenario, my preference would be Dan Lanning. That would be my choice. I think he checks all the boxes of what I would be looking for with Dan Lanning. I understand that just this past March, he got a new 6-year deal with Oregon. I understand he turned down Alabama. I'm not telling you he would take the job. But in his time as the coach at Oregon, he is 42-7. And I love the fact that he was a GA at Bama under Nick, and he coached with Kirby from 2018 to 2021. He is rooted in their culture. I love that. And you have a young guy at 39 years old who is made for this era of college football. He's in his 4th season at Oregon, so it's a small sample size, but he has built his program at Oregon. 10-3, 12-2, 13-1, and right now they're 7-1. Their home loss to Indiana, the only blemish this year. So I look at a guy who is from Missouri, but has coached all over the South, has coached under Nick and Kirby, is young, and has had success in a power conference and understands this era. That would be my number one choice ahead of Lane Kiffin. And I will tell you that I understand the risk associated with going and giving someone a $100 million deal. I understand because you just lived it. But if you're LSU, you ask yourself the question, can you afford to miss again? And I would say no. My feeling has always been when it comes to LSU hiring coaches, like, you're LSU. I mean, we just had Peter Burns of the SEC Network on with us. Said he put LSU as a top 3 job in the country. Top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever you want to call it. It's in that that echelon. You have a lot to offer. So the thing that's the biggest concern for me, if you went after an established veteran coach, is what happened with Nick and Brian Kelly and Dabo Swinney and Mike Gundy and these coaches from a different era that don't love this era. They got into this profession to recruit high school talent, develop guys, build culture over years. They didn't get in it to see players paid and NIL and portal and leaving. It's completely different. And handing over authority to a GM to help build a roster is different. And I respect that. I respect very much the people who came in a different era, don't love this, they get out. Okay, I respect that. So I'd rather someone who accepts that and embraces that and can maximize that. Well, Dan Lanning's shown he can do it. So you're blending the best of what I think is both worlds. That would be my choice. Dan Lanning would be my choice. I have no idea if you have an ice cube's chance in hell of getting Dan Lanning out of Oregon. No idea. He's got Phil Knight Nike money. He's got a blank checkbook, with an open checkbook, whatever he wants to spend, he's got it. Phil Knight reportedly has said that. All that stuff. What I will say also is it ain't easy to recruit to Oregon. I understand they got the flashy uniforms, they got Nike money and all that stuff, but there's a lot of people who hop on a plane from the South and don't like flying 4 hours to get to Eugene. Flying to Portland, drive up, whatever it is. You know what I mean? There's a physical regional barrier that he has to cross. Look, Deuce Gerald's the guy currently committed to LSU. It was LSU, Oregon. The thing that swung Gerald's to LSU when all else was equal was the fact that his family's from here, he's got family that lives here, family's in Atlanta. I mean, it's far and expensive to fly your ass to Oregon every weekend and watch a football game. I get it. That'd be my choice. But I think the other thing to consider is if you don't go, listen, maybe they end up getting past that and it's someone among the Eli Drinkwitz, Jed Fish, who's a Florida guy who's coaching at Washington, Dan Mullen, who I think Dan Mullen would be a really strong choice. Dan Mullen can coach football. He is a really good offensive mind, brilliant game caller, schemer, all that stuff. Dan Mullen hated to recruit. Guess what? You don't have to recruit in this era. Not like you did. You recruit with a checkbook. I think Dan Mullen is perfect for this era, that he wasn't perfect for the previous era. If you get past that list, I know some people have mentioned John Sumrall at Tulane. Listen, I think John Sumrall has done an awesome job. But you know the but that's going to follow. The same reason 4 years ago, nobody was interested in Napier because you can't hire the coach from UL Lafayette. You're going to have people in this state, right or wrong, you're going to have people in this state who say you can't hire the coach from Tulane. Okay. I ain't making the decision. I think you do limit yourself from hiring potentially an awesome coach who I think has done an amazing job as an X and O guy, a culture guy, did it at Troy, now doing it at Tulane. He inherited a good situation from Willie Fritz, no doubt, but he's built upon it. I think if you're going to go that route, Sumrall would be a great hire. I also know the culture around LSU, and there's a lot of people who are going to say, you're not hiring the coach from Tulane. It'll be a hard no just because of that, which is short-sighted, but I think that's the reality for some people. I'm going to tell you the other thing to consider is if you decide you're not going to do the $100 million contract and you're going to try to go a different route, I think it has to be something that's built around how the current state of college football is structured, and that is an NFL model. You have a general manager now in place who, by and large, is moving the pieces on the chessboard financially to determine who you're spending, what you're spending on who, how, and where. Yes, the head coach will have autonomy to make decisions on certain players and all this. That'll always be the case. But it is different now. And having someone with an NFL background matters. Because you can come into a situation where you recognize there's a GM in place, in this case, Austin Thomas at LSU, who's going to have a lot of authority and autonomy when it comes to building the roster and maintaining the roster and the money and all that sort of stuff. And the coach can go coach. You do your job, I'll do my job. And the two names with ties to LSU that would be interesting are Joe Brady and Kelvin Sheppard. Hear me out. Now, I would not have been interested in Joe Brady 4 years ago, to be abundantly clear. I think Joe Brady gets way too much credit. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any. I'm saying he gets way too much credit for 2019. Steve Ensminger was the OC. He ran the offense. He called the plays. Brady brought some concepts in, undeniably, that were valuable, and Brady worked with the receivers. I probably could have worked with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and done okay. They are awesome. But I think he deserves some credit. I think he's gotten too much credit over the years. I'm not surprised he failed in the first go-round at Carolina, but he's done an amazing job in Buffalo. It helps when you have the MVP as your quarterback in Josh Allen, but the way Brady unlocked that Buffalo offense was with the running game. As a guy with a passing background, it's the running game in Buffalo that's been the unlock. That versatility showed a lot of growth, and I think he's been awesome. Now, Joe Brady might be in line to be a head coach, but what I'll tell you is, in making some phone calls today, this is one of those that you could make work financially a lot of different ways. Joe Brady, I was told today, makes $1.8 million. You could pay Joe Brady $5 million base on an incentive-laden deal that might be interesting enough to get him here. Maybe, maybe not. Kelvin Sheppard, who played at LSU, DC right now with Detroit, with the Lions, culture with Dan Campbell there. You could do a similar deal. Or what if you hired them both? What if you hired Joe Brady as your head coach and Kelvin Sheppard for $2.5 million, which you're paying Blake Baker right now, as your DC, and you get them both? And you could structure things with an incentive-laden deal. By the way, Jeff Brom at Louisville right now signed an incentive-laden deal with the Cardinals. It can be done. If you've ever looked at an NFL contract, there are provisions in certain contracts, like bonuses that are, the acronym would be like LTBE, likely to be earned bonuses, like will Cam Jordan be on the active roster? Well, of course he is. That's going to unlock a bonus. That's in addition to your base and how it's structured. And then there's like NLTB, not likely to be earned bonuses, which if you hit these incentives and bonuses, boom, there's another $1 million, whatever it may be. The point is, if college football structurally is looking more and more like the NFL, then you need to start building contracts like the NFL does for your coaches, for your players, all the way around, so you can manage this fiscally in a smart way. My preference is, let's go find $100 million and get Dan Lanning here. I would love to see that happen. I'm not sure I believe that's going to happen. And I don't know that there's really a bidding war that would happen that would get Dan Lanning away from Oregon. He already passed on Alabama last year. Now, maybe he didn't want to follow Nick Saban, and maybe there are other criteria there in Tuscaloosa that aren't as appealing as Baton Rouge. I don't know. I don't know Dan Lanning a lick. I'm just looking at resume, criteria, all the stuff I'm looking for. Dan Lanning would be my guy. But if not, then I think you need to look at getting more creative in the way you hire and the way you structure your next coach's contract if you're trying to avoid the $100 million, the $50 million buyout on a $100 million contract. That will be an albatross around your neck for the next 6 years. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.